What is up, SkinClub community? Welcome back. It's Elfishguy, Pilski, and Bleh here for an exclusive video for you guys. You'll only find this on the SkinClub community platforms. But look, we've got some things to talk about, guys, because there's always this conversation that happens. Top 10, top 20, who's the best, who's this, who's that. And when we do our podcast, when we do Geographically Challenged, we get sometimes some hate in the comments from some fans because we say this team's better than this team or that team's better than that team. So today we are here to put a stop to all of those questions and finally answer who is the greatest Asian CS team of the modern era. Do you guys want to start anywhere, or should we just jump into it?
You kind of, excuse me, you kind of assume we're not going to get any hate for this, which is kind of crazy because we're going to be ranking teams, and I'm telling you, if this is going to be the list for APAC in modern day Counter-Strike, we're going to be getting a lot of hate. But then again, Jordan, I don't care. I love it. Feed me.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think the thing is, I guess as far as we're concerned, this is the list. So why should you even listen to us? I guess why is our opinion valid? Well, I've been casting CS since Global Offensive came out. Pilski more or less been involved in CS in some way, shape, or form since Global Offensive came out as well, as a player and then into analysis and casting. And Bleh, you've obviously been around even prior to that point, so you've got quite a large view of all of this. So I think there's not really many people in the world that actually have more of a view of Counter-Strike in this region in particular, over such a long history, right? Because we've all been involved pretty much in Counter-Strike for 10 years or more, which more or less spans us back to like the start of Global Offensive. I wasn't maybe involved quite that early back in 2012, for example, but when things started to kind of get rolling in an esports sense was when I started to get involved. So yeah, we've got a pretty good idea of I think, at least this region and how these teams have kind of developed. So let's kick on into things. Now, first things that we have to do is probably define what is greatest. I think that is very much up to interpretation. To me, greatest doesn't necessarily mean best, although it does generally correlate. I kind of gave, at least in my list that I've got, some points for like aura as well. Like I think teams that have a bit of aura or that had some kind of significant impact on Asian Counter-Strike in some way, shape or form that might not necessarily have been results based. I gave them some points and you'll see some of them in my list at least. So I'll start it off here because I think it's probably pretty easy to go for number one. I think number one for me is like obviously the current day Mongols. I don't really think there's much of an argument here, personally.
No shot. It's not Tyloo with Score and the Croatian.
Oh, you mean
Serbian?
Emmy and Roga?
Yeah, that Tyloo was sick, bro.
They did have some aura, I'll tell you that. I don't know if it's like negative or positive.
Add Serbians to your team, instant plus aura.
I do think it's also important to preface everything as to why we're making it like the modern day era.
Global
because like I
onwards.
feel like because if you go back all the way to 1.6 and even prior to 1.6 or like 1.5, whatever, I think it's harder to keep track. And I feel for a lot of viewers, CSGO onwards has more relevancy, right? But then if you include 1.6, for me, a shout out would be the Koreans I'm talking about, Solo and Gang, or the Project KR guys, or Red Code, or We Made Fox, or whatever they were called. Obviously, a couple of Tyloo iterations, obviously WNV. But for me personally, I think it just makes sense to make it a just more global offensive onwards, because the record keeping it's better, I feel, in global offensive, number one, and number two, it's I don't think it's fair as well, right? Like the level of competition and the way things were is so vastly different. So I think this makes much more sense.
I agree. I think it's definitely apples to oranges when we're talking about Counter-Strike prior to Global Offensive and from Global Offensive onwards. I even think like almost, to me, maybe like 2015 onwards is where it really kind of started to pick up. 2015, 2016, when majors really started to get going and people really started to get involved. But even like the early days of Counter-Strike, Global Offensive felt very different to, maybe 2016 onwards, if that makes sense. 2016 onwards to present day, it feels like very similar in a sense. Obviously, there's been changes in terms of who's the best teams and tournament organizers and formats and VRS and all that bullshit. But generally speaking, at least the scale of things was quite large going forward. So realistically speaking, I think the Mongols, current day Mongols, kind of has to go in number one for me since Global Offensive to now, just purely based on their consistency. I mean, you can look at someone like the Renegades roster that made top 4 at the major and say, well, they had a higher peak. Technically, they did, right? Because they made top 4 at the major. Mongols have only ever made top 8 at a major, but I think just in terms of consistent level of playoffs appearances, top level performances, S tier events where they've made, top 8, top 4, what have you, the Mongols beats them pretty much in every single category. The only exception being that one peak with a top 4 at a major.
I think as well, though, like that, I look at that major and I think it's a bit of like, there's a few majors that I look at. I'm like, that was a bit of a clusterfuck. I feel like the competitiveness, like how good Mongols are and the competitiveness of this era is like better than that team, and also the consistency factor. So I don't think I don't even think it's particularly that close. I think Mongols is like a fair bit better than that roster. I don't know how you guys
not
feel.
a hot take. Not a hot take.
It's really not. That's the thing with Mongols, right? Not only are we talking about them making, especially as of the recording of this episode, now they've made they've made a playoffs of every event they've played land since I believe I Am Rio, right? They've won multiple. They've actually won multiple. Well, tier 1 events, right? At the very least, or tier 1.5 events. Big prize pool, so to speak. Made a playoffs of the major. They made a playoffs of Katowice. They made a playoffs of Cluj. These are S tier events. I mean, a major as well, obviously. So yeah, by any metric you look at it, the run that the Mongols are on right now, especially with the looking at all the players they have as well, you really can't argue for any other team. I have to agree with them.
Yep.
With you guys, right?
Yeah. I just put a little date in there just in case. I think it's kind of, I guess, relevant.
Kind of obvious. Yeah.
That if, a year down the track, someone's watching this video and there's another team that's beaten the Mongols run, then, yeah, maybe this isn't relevant anymore. But at least...
we'd be fucking spoiled, mate. Holy
Tyloo.
shit.
Much
This ever happens again.
New Tyloo? I don't know, man.
New Tyloo, yeah. All right.
Just in case people get confused with, is that Zulkenberg machine gun Mongols? Yeah, they had aura, but they're not the best.
They're not the best. They're not the best, that's for sure. Now, I feel like, look, I wanted to start with that current Mongols because I really don't think that there's that much of a discussion point there. I think it's kind of like, as you've seen, across the board, we've all gone for the Mongols, and there's not really much of an argument. So here's where things maybe get a little bit interesting. I personally would put this Renegades in number 2. This is the Renegades that I was just referring to, the one that made top 4 at the major, as a JKS, Jacob, Gratisfaction, and Liaz. Obviously, it wasn't just a top 4 at the major, at the start of the major. They were, I think, technically prior to the Mongols, and maybe even still today, the highest rated Asia Pacific team on HLTV rankings of all time. They made top 5 in April 2019, and obviously they had various playoffs appearances and stuff like that. But also, particularly in that period, they had 3 back-to-back minor wins, which is similar to what the Mongols have been able to do in more recent times, in that they've been the team that has won every single Asia RMR. Renegades won pretty much every single Asia minor. And so for their period, I think they were the best team easily in that region. And that was a particularly strong period of Asian Counter-Strike as well, I would think. 2018 and 2019, you'll see as we go down the list, at least my list. I think 2018, 2019 is almost like one of those golden eras of Asian Counter-Strike, that if we go back and look at that in history, Renegades being particularly strong in that era is quite impressive. But also, that top 5 in HLTV ranking, I think, pays a lot in my mind personally. So agree, disagree? Do we have them as number 2 across the board, or?
I think results-wise, you can't really argue against it. I think they're where a negative point, or rather why the Mongols, won out on top, I think is the longevity for this team, right? They didn't really stick around for very long altogether. But again, top 4 in a major in Berlin, the top 8, right, in Kato, which is also a major, if I'm not mistaken, in 2019. Dude, like 2 majors, making the playoffs right there at deep runs is quite impressive. And I'm looking at some of the results. It came second in IM Beijing, another S tier event, despite the fact that the competition, I was there at the event, I don't think the competition was really that great. A lot of teams didn't really fly down there, but still, second place. And yeah, they had a very solid run altogether. And at least near the end of their lineup as 100 Thieves as well. This is a Renegades 100 Thieves lineup, right? Because they swapped orgs in between as well. I feel I forgot what really happened. I think it was Jacob leaving or whatever. But at the end of that run, they did have a pretty solid run, so to speak. But yeah, I think the lack of longevity overall, if they manage to do this for across maybe 2 years, for example, I think I would actually put them on top if they're able to maintain a consistent level of Esther event performances, so to speak.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think to an extent, you can also say technically minus points for having an import, right? Jacob is technically not Asia, so you're getting some
Liquid,
kind of
Liquid is an Asian team right now, right? So
It's true.
Maybe they're ahead of the fucking curve.
Liquid got the Asia invite to the next Blast event, so hey, who am
we'll
I
talk
to
about that
judge?
later.
Yeah, that'll be on a geographically challenged episode at some point. Pilski, your take? You're an AZ hater sometimes.
Yeah, I think obviously it's hard to argue against this team. I think the cool thing about this team for me was always the fact that it was like a blend of like two eras of like good Aussie teams with an import. It's like the old school Renegades of Azza, JKS blended in with like Greyhound Order players. It's like basically for me the culmination of like all of OS, really. Like you've got two players who came up in like the earlier days, being Azza and JKS, coming through like bringing all of that experience through and playing on multiple like kind of older edition rosters, and then Grat and Leas are kind of like the newer kids that came out of like, what would you say, like 18 onwards, and then through COVID, like definitely
Maybe a little
like,
earlier than that.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Probably
a little bit
15,
earlier.
16 would have been...
Yeah.
I think Leas was coming through maybe 2016, and Gratisfaction might have been 2016, 2017, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, so like I think that's what that made that lineup so good, in combination with the fact that they had, you can't not mention Kassad as well. Like he was he's kind of like the defining factor of the team, because it gave them like a lot of that structure, and it gave them something that Asian teams and OS teams have always struggled with, which is just being able to play like the structure that a lot of EU teams play, and that level, bringing that level of competition as well. Yeah.
That's definitely not what I expected that to do.
I'm
but
actually looking.
I'll just put a sneaky little point in there
go
for the coaches, just on the side.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, actually, Mara, the goat. But I'm just looking at like what happened as well. Like like my like I think I memory hold the fact that 100 Thieves did drop the roster, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
They did, and they became extreme mums at one point. And that was a dark day. Those were dark days, slumming it out in tier 2-3 Europe and not being able to be that competitive.
Yeah.
It kind of like the reason why like the team has lost a little bit of the sparkle is like just because like it kind of, what's the word? It's like you don't go out with a bang. They really kind of just like
went out with a fizzle
over time, and it was like really like
it was a slow, painful death.
To a really, really good run.
I mean, kind of forget Extremum existed, right? With Bentet playing there as well.
I like to forget that. In my head, that Bentet Extremum era just doesn't exist. I'm still waiting for the ANZ Asia Super Team, the first ANZ Asia Super Team to ever exist. Because Extremum, I don't even remember at this point. But that's why I think it's kind of important when we're doing this list to like put the year, like the period where they're on this ranking. Because like you could say the Mongols, right? But that could mean like the Mongols that like just left IHC, which was like the Cabal and Annihilation.
Yeah.
And that was a good team.
Too.
Yeah, that's a good team for sure. But are they the same as this current day Mongols? Obviously they're not, right? And this current Renegades, like you could look at that and be like, well, there's a core Renegades roster that had as a JKS, Nifty, Ustillo, and who was the fifth in that? Nifty, Ustillo, and Naf, obviously. And was that Renegades as good as this Renegades? Well, maybe not. But anyway, so that's why I think the period is important as well.
The crazy thing as well, I'll just say quickly before we move on from Mongols, is like a lot of these teams for me have like iconic players who have a lot of history. And the current day Mongols has a bunch of guys that like I wouldn't have ever pointed at and been like, this guy is going to be the best on the best team in Asia. Like all of the players outside of maybe Blitz and like Techno as well over like a pretty decent amount of time. Like the other three in particular are like players that like two of them were completely unheard of. And then Sensu was like a player that I was like, that's a player that has been like streaky as fuck.
The most famous thing in his career
those
is
are the 5 names
skins
at the top of Asia CS all time in the modern era is just like fucking insane to me when you've got players like Azur or some shit who's like played since literally fucking CSGO came out,
Yeah,
I mean, it's kids, Mongolian kids, bro.
It is going to be interesting because I'm sure at some point down the track we'll do a top 10 or 20 players or whatever of the modern era. And that'll be interesting where we kind of get into that discussion where it's like, for example, for someone like JKS, it's like, is his individual performance weighting enough to put him as like, let's say the #1 player from the Asia region of all time? I think there actually might be an argument that could be the case for sure. So, bear that in mind, obviously. Now, look, number 1, number 2, and I think number 3 as well for me here are probably going to be somewhat unanimous, or at least you guys might agree. We'll see. But
I think this is where things get interesting, man. I think this is where I might disagree. Yeah,
it definitely goes like 1, 2 are like pretty, I think, fairly obvious. 3 for me feels pretty obvious, but based on your reception, maybe not. But beyond this, I think it's like, holy shit, this is where it could go anywhere. So number 3 for me is this Tyloo. Mo Didi, somebody bent it extra. Now let me sell you this, because I agree with the skepticism that I can already hear in your voice, Pilski. But it is purely this 2018 Tyloo. And
you're talking about DreamHack. The DreamHack run, right?
I'm talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that they were the first Asian team of all time to make the HLTV top 10.
In the modern era.
In the modern era. That was August 2018. They were pretty consistently top 15 in the HLTV ranking throughout 2018. From May to October, they didn't drop outside of the top 15. And for the most part, they were like 13 or 14 or something like that. So they were pretty consistently in that period a very, very strong team globally, but certainly within Asia. And the thing that gets them plus points for me is like, I feel like this team had a bit of aura. You know what I mean? Like, this was the first team from Asia that people were like, oh, this team's actually kind of like legit. Not that they were like a legit good team, but that they were legit a team that could do damage on the international stage. You know, you if you would talk to anybody about Asian Counter-Strike and like historic names and like legendary names, obviously Bentet and Extra are going to be 2 of the top names on people's lists. Somebody's still there. Mo and Didi, for I think more hardcore Asia CS fans, are well known and well loved. But in particular, like Bentet and Extra are in their class, like as a rifler and as an AWPer, like considered, as far as Asian CS is concerned, 2 of the best in category, right? If we would make a list of top 10 AWPers, or let's say top 3 AWPers even, Extra is probably in that list for almost everybody that was able to watch this period of Counter-Strike. Bentet, I think, has had somewhat of a fall from grace in the sense that, as we've seen in Extremum and in that discussion we were having, has overstayed his welcome in some senses. So he's fallen off a little bit in that respect. But I still think that this Tyloo team had aura. Now, they're my number 3 team. But obviously, again, we can move this around as you guys wish. So what's your take?
My immediate thought, and again, I wanted to go in this particular episode a little dry. Like, for me personally, I want to just, kind of have my first immediate knee-jerk reaction thoughts to be what I brought to the table, right? And for me, what I thought was the Fox Seminar Renegades iterations, right? Like, and how dominant they were at that point in time in APAC. Now, again, it depends on our definition of that. Did they manage to make any crazy deep runs in majors and whatnot? No, they didn't. I was taking a look at also some of their statics, and this is the lineup where, just to remind everyone, this was, JKS was there, a very, very young JKS. We had Sponge as the IGL. We had Azza, we had Yaman Yam, and we had Havoc, who got replaced by Ustilo right after a bit when they were on Renegades. Yeah. And looking at the results, that's the thing. That's when I had to kind of bite my tongue, is that particular lineup, which for me is definitely in the top 10. They're definitely in the top 10 because they were so dominant in Asia, and they were one of the first teams, the first team in modern day era from our region, from APAC, who actually made it to the West. They kind of, if you think about it, right, they were the guys who managed to kind of start to allow or create a pathway for a lot of OS players to trickle in to Western Counter-Strike, and or rather mainland Counter-Strike, which to me, I think it's very understated as well. And that's why I want to put them up there. But I can't argue with what he said about Tyloo. When they made a DreamHack Masters playoffs run, when they played against, I think, Luminosity, I think it was Luminosity at that point in time, against Fallen and all these guys for the very first time, people were like, what the fuck is this? It's crazy. And let's not also forget about Bentet just having massive aura, right? Upside down Poland. Like, he was at HLTV forums. He was the guy. He was the guy we could get behind. So, number 3 for me.
For Tyloo, yeah,
I can't really argue against it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this is the thing. You got to define, when you define like greatest, it's like, are we looking at the rankings? And I kind of, because it's such a long period, I kind of looked at rankings and like major qualifications a lot. But there were a lot of events where Asia teams were like at non-majors, just randomly like having upsets. There was like certain events where Greyhound were fucking cracked, and then there were certain events where Tyloo were cracked that we just talked about. So I agree the Indo version of Tyloo, as I'm going to call them, is probably the number 3 team. But I have a couple of other teams that I'm like looking at, and I'm like, yeah, they had some good like upsets at international events as well.
For sure. I think
they didn't hit the same level of rankings, and that's why like Voxy for me as well is like, well, they were like a team that paved the way for sure. So like that might fit your criteria of greatest, but like how high did they ever get up the rankings? Like top 30 or something? Like I don't even know.
And especially outside of top 10, top 15, it just gets murky with rankings, right? I mean, it's just like incremental, or you don't really have much data to work with. At least back then when we didn't have as many events for tier 2 teams, so to speak. So.
Yeah. The thing is, like, I remember back in the day, like, the bar for Voxy was like, holy fuck, they beat a European team. Like, we got an upset, you know?
They beat
like,
NIP.
And now we're fucking talking about, like, we've made the playoffs. We're beating multiple European teams in the top 30. Like, it's just, like, comparing apples and oranges. That pre-2015 CSGO era, it's, like, almost an entirely different game.
That's it.
Or entirely different time, for sure.
Yeah. That's what I was saying at the start, right? Where it's, like, 2012 to 2015, it's almost like, that almost could have been the cutoff. Like 2015 onwards could have been the cutoff for modern era, because that's like 10 years, right? But I think it's same game sort of territory, so I still have it.
I think Tyloo as well is like is like a beloved team, this iteration of Tyloo, because it's such a clusterfuck.
It's just aura.
Multiple different languages. You don't know what they're going to do because they probably don't know what they're going to do. Maybe there's players like not even fucking talking to each other. Miss utility everywhere, double smoking CT spawn on Inferno every fucking game because they're not talking to each other, just running it down. Like
people,
honestly,
and they still win, and they still find a way to win. So like the amount of barriers they put up for themselves just to add extra points into firepower is so iconic.
I think it's crazy how people forget how Bentem is not just the star player, but also the translator, speaking Bahasa, Indonesian, trying to communicate for you, execute a bit of English as well as Mandarin. I'm like, bro, like, are you a savant? Like, that's insane.
This was this was the original. You know how every team now is like an international team. This was the original international team. This was being an international team before being an international team was cool.
This is bricks before bricks,
Yeah. So, look again. Obviously, none of this is set in stone, apart from, in my opinion, the Mongols being number 1. I think they're easily clear. I think that one I can lock in. But Renegades, Tyloo, beyond, happy to change this as we continue down the list. So we'll bear that in mind because the thing is, like, I think it's pretty easy to go, oh yeah, of course Tyloo's number 3, but then maybe there'll be another team that gets thrown in here where you're like, I'm
super curious, bro, like what Bleh would say is number 4 if he's already mentioning Voxy, because I don't think I had Voxy anywhere near like this like position.
You didn't have them in your top 10?
I did have them in my top 10, of course, but I don't think I had them like this high. No way.
I had them in my top 10 as well. I also didn't have them number 3 for sure.
I didn't have them number 3 per se, but I don't know. Like, it just came to the top of my mind. But
yeah, for sure. Like that's how I did it as well. A little bit. It's like memorableness and like the aura as well is exactly a lot of points. Yeah.
And now the team where I would start to have to touch upon it. Again, the multiple iterations of Tyloo, right? There are a couple out there we could talk about. There's also, you can't forget what Vici did.
Vici's a team. They're on my list as well.
And I am Katowice 2019. That was my first Kato as well, where they did qualify. They took down North. They killed North.
Yep.
North, as they were called back then. Just a small anecdote. I was in a bus ride from the hotel to the airport at 2 a.m. with the entire North team and me alone just sitting there in a bus. And man, I'll tell you, that is the longest bus ride I have ever had. Not one peep, not one word for an hour straight. And that's when I knew, I'm like, yeah, this team's dead. This team's over. But Vici did that. Vici killed an EU team. Vici killed MSL's career. So for me, Vici would be up there number 4.
You reckon Vici's number 4?
Yeah, I think so, man. I think they had higher peaks, and also Advent, like fucking Advent, dude. Come on, man.
Yeah,
like, I mean, Advent. Vibes. Look, we can talk about like what team is the best, but we all agree top 20 players. Advent is number 1, like undeniable.
Advent's on the top. Advent's is in his top. We don't need him in the top 20. He gets his own category. He has the Advent.
I just want to say, I put out a tweet when when Tyloo did well, when I'm like, Advent, you got to give shout out to him. Despite the fact he couldn't shoot the broadside of a barn, he still managed to find Jam Young, Mercury, Mosier, and all these guys. I'm like, incredible guy. I wish he started scouting players and coaching. I think he has a lot to give to the to Chinese teams. And I had about, like some 20 haters, Chinese people. No, they're not even hating. They're just like replying in Chinese, and I had to translate it. And it's like, Advent on top. Advent did no wrong. That's the thing. Advent did no wrong. That's a common phrase I found right there. I don't know. There's an Advent cult in China.
Yeah.
How many other players has cults, dude? Advent has one. He's on top.
They have one in English as well. There's a Twitter community called Advent Ultras. I think that's a pretty base Twitter community. Yeah. I wish we would have thought of that. But anyway, whoever did, that was a pretty good one. I'll give them a shout out for that one.
Okay,
now,
so
we've got two teams here. I think we should put them in the list somewhere, because like if we keep going down the list one by one,
I think we're gonna have all these teams more below, bro. Like I legit think. Well, I don't agree with either of these at number 4. I don't know what you think.
No. They don't need to go in 4, but I think we should. Okay. We should put them somewhere in the list.
Voxy.
Where do you think? Where do you have Voxy?
I had them like 7. Old Renegades, Voxy. I had it together. Like, just like even further on from that point.
Wait. Are you talking about the Havoc lineup, or do you still look? It has to be the Havoc lineup.
It has to be the Havoc lineup.
So to me, this is the 2012 to 2015 Voxy. Because, but I'm sure there was. I don't think there was too many roster changes in there. Top Gun got replaced when they went to Renegades.
JKS, Ricky, like they really did start changing it over time.
There was a lot, but when did that change come?
Hazard are the only two players that remained like for quite a while.
But it's after 2015 is the point where they became Renegades. They became Renegades in 2016, and I believe that was when Top Gun dropped out of the roster and Still
Yam came in.
Or Yam?
No, Yam came in. Yeah,
Yam came first.
Yeah, Yam came in. But here's the thing. That's when they started, attending a lot more events. Now, again, it is because they had this Vox Seminar had these consistent runs that they were allowed, that they got picked up by Renegades and whatnot. So it's cause and effect in a way. But I feel like the Yam lineup did more, because this particular lineup, they didn't really do much when they qualified for all the majors, if memory serves me right. But with Yam, they actually, apart from the majors, some of the events, they had some wins. They were competitive in certain times, despite not really having too many deeper runs. So personally, I'd put the Yam lineup on top.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think, Pilski? Because for me, you go, but
go on.
All right. Well, I was going to say, for me, I agree with what you're saying. Results-wise, that the later era, as in the Renegades era of this team, had better results, but there wasn't any results necessarily that were like super crazy, super out there, that were like out of this world necessarily for that core that put them in a position above any of the other teams that I've got in the list. For me personally, I mean, look, there are arguments to be made, I guess, but for me, just the fact that this team was able to do what they did from A and Z, and maybe you don't have obviously that same like bias towards them, Bleh, because you're obviously not from A and Z, but this was the team that I watched when I first started getting into Counter-Strike, and I remember staying up at 3 a.m. watching these guys and like getting those wins against like the old NIPs and whatever was such a big deal. And that qualification for the major, it wasn't the first major that they qualified for, it was I think the second major that they qualified for, where they had to play that like that play-in stage against the Europeans. And when they qualified for that, we've all seen that video, where they're Sponges wearing the Aussie flag and they've got the fucking kangaroo there and nothing's in the crowd in front of them, like going crazy. And then obviously they go apeshit when they beat, I think was it 3D Max, I think it might have been. So for me, like this is like when I'm talking about aura points, right? When we're talking about greatest as opposed to best, like this team, like they're pretty much maxed out on aura points. Like of all of the teams, they're probably the team that gets the most aura points from me. And that's why I actually had that version of this team in the list. I did have them personally for me. Let me have a quick look. I think I had them at number 6. I had them at number 6. I'm happy for them at number 7 personally, to be honest. But I really think that this team, like they paved the way for Oceanic Counter-Strike in the same way that 2016 Mongols, who also appear in my list, spoiler alert, paved the way for Mongolian Counter-Strike, and some of these earlier iterations of Tyloo paved the way for Chinese Counter-Strike. So for me, they get big bonus points for that, even if maybe the results, certainly in the Top Gun era, were not as good as they were in the latter era.
I can see that. That's a convincing argument. It's also because, by the way, when I started like doing a lot of events as well, this is the team that was winning every fucking Asian qualifier, right? Like one of my first events, ESL 1 Cologne did 16-0 neck break. Thanks, guys. In an Indian team, which also had, by the way, Zilkenberg, no, Machine Gun on that team, by the way, if my memory serves me right. So I see what you mean, and I feel like the argument I made for that, the Yaman lineup, actually is the same thing I could use for this as well. So.
I mean, I'm happy to take the community, not the community, or like the consensus.
I think we just leave them there for now.
Just leave them there. I don't want to keep both lineups though. I don't think.
Well, let's just put.
I had them together. That's the thing. I had them together, even though it is like very different teams over time. But it's such a long period, bro. Like talking 2012 to like 16 or 17 or something at this point. Like they change. It's 2019 where they had that. Well, that's the top 4 of Renegades. But like I count the Ricky, Ustillo, all of these guys are like the old era CS players for me. You know, this is all like old era CS players that I put Azza and JKS, whereas like there's a very clear new era of players, which is like Chiefs, Greyhound, all that shit for me, you know. So I kind of see it as the same team, even though it is a very different team, just to like simplify things down.
Well, I'll put this other Renegades team in the honorable mentions, and once we fill out the whole list, we can like potentially put them in or take out, you know, as we sort of see the whole list and go, oh, actually, I think they're better than this or whatever. So let's leave it at that for now. And again, subject to change potentially. Now, Vici,
what do you have as 4th, Jordan?
What do I have as 4th? Do we want to get into that? Okay.
Yeah, let's just do it. Let's do
it. Let's jump into it.
Okay. This is my 4th team, and I feel like this is going to piss some people off. But the current day FlyQuest / Renegades / Greyhound.
I was thinking about it. I'm not
even
mad.
My number 4. They are my number 4.
The thing is, okay, like I also had them there.
You have Regali? Have you seen results recently, dude? Just take it out. Take out Regali. Come on.
He's not from here, bro. He's not from here. He doesn't make the cool Asia list, okay?
Well, neither is Jacob.
No, he's
the thing is, though,
he's got a passport at this point. You make a top 4 of Asia.
Fair enough.
Fucking whoever the fuck the prime minister was.
I mean, dude, like it doesn't make sense to have Regali because the results are actually trash.
That's actually a fair point. That is a fair point.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, I wanted it to be like the current day roster of this team. Obviously, I've got Renafly Hounds in there because they've gone through so many different iterations of teams. Yeah. But like basically what I'm talking about is the post-COVID Dexter era of this team, if that makes sense. And even prior, maybe slightly prior to Dexter as well, I think you can kind of include that because of their dominance. So it's maybe even slightly earlier with 2023 included. So probably like, let's say the last 2 years, right? Dexter, Inns, Vexite. Really the core is obviously Inns, Vexite, Liaz, Ali, plus Dexter / I think it was Sicko that he replaced. That era of Renegades, Greyhound, FlyQuest, what have you, I think have had a pretty unprecedented level of consistency within the Asia region. Yeah. And yes, their peaks have definitely not been as high as someone like the Mongols, someone like that Renegade, someone like that Tyloo. But I just think in terms of consistency, it even is arguable that they've been more consistent than the Mongols roster, just that they haven't hit the same peak and they haven't been consistently as good. But at the level that they're at, they have been consistently one of the top 2 teams in the Asia region for... Yeah. I can't remember how. Like, it feels like it's been 5 or fucking 10 years.
As for Greyhound as well, like they did have a couple of tournaments where they actually got some pretty fucking legit wins over like top teams in Europe and shit, or like very, very good teams in Europe. Not like top 5 or anything like that, but they've had some very, very memorable upsets or maps that were like very, very good from them. So that's why I had them there. Where did you? I honestly think 4 to 6 is like super debatable.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the results though, man, and it's like I agree with you. Obviously, in the past few years, they have been by far the best APAC team. It's almost a meme, you know, just looking at the numbers they have against the local opposition. It's hilarious how dominant they are. It's just that the results overall, and yes, they've had some wins. They won the ESL Challenge Atlanta. That was pretty cool, right? They had some decent opposition right there. But apart from that, looking at their results, man, EPL season 20, like 21st, 28th, 13th, 16th in Cologne play-ins, 12 to 15 in EWC, 13 to 16 in IM Dallas.
Barely scraping. But who do you put above them? That's the thing. Who do you put above them?
Well, the
I
teams that
I
would
put
debate-
Vox. I put Vox over them. They had more fucking aura. They laid the path. They did what they had to,
Les
given the
been
opportunities
convinced.
they had back
you
then.
know what? I agree. They did have more aura for sure.
They definitely
for
had
sure.
more aura.
They definitely
but like,
had more
but
aura.
just in
Dude,
terms of
Sponge's one interview is more remembered than anything that's been given by the Greyhound guys, right? Apart from Ali yelling
fuck your
behind.
pickums. Fuck your pickums is definitely aura.
pickums.
That's aura.
That's all right, dude.
That's
Sponge
all right.
literally abusing all the talents still, and him becoming a talent to this day is one of the funniest things ever. I'd put Vox over Renegades Greyhounds, honestly. They did more at a point in time where opportunities were far and few in between. They kind of forged a path for the entirety of OS. I'll give it to them, man. I'd put them over Greyhounds Renegades.
I'm gonna veto that personally. That's a veto from me.
All right, Pilly. All right, Pilly. You need a tiebreaker.
It's up to you,
Go on.
Pilly. You got a tiebreaker.
I'm going to
here.
veto that because I did have them fourth on my list, but I agree they did have more aura and they were more memorable and they do.
You guys are just fucking biased.
We're not. How are we biased? They're both Australian fucking
The thing
teams.
is, though, okay, can we actually
Recency
discuss?
bias.
Though, can we discuss? Is FlyQuest Greyhound that much better than the old Tyloo China lineup, or like the old Mongols lineup with Cabal, like Score and?
Okay, so which
Annihilation and
Tyloos
those
are you
guys?
talking about? You're talking
I'm
about
talking
this
about
Tyloo?
like Mo, DD, Summer, somebody attacker. I'm talking about like
Oh man, that was
Brain
pure
Dead,
aura.
China, Aura, fucking. Run
that's
it
a
down.
lineup.
that,
He
that
made me
was
hard.
that was only like 2019 though, wasn't it? That wasn't that long. That
Okay.
that
Well,
was
what Tyloo lineup did you have?
No. Yeah, I'm talking about the one older than that.
Or Mo
wait,
oh, this would have been okay. So hang on. Wait. So was it Mo DD somebody?
Captain Mo,
I had Captain Mo, DD, somebody,
Summer,
Summer,
Attacker,
and
DD,
Attacker.
somebody.
Yeah. Some
But
iteration
when was
of
this?
that.
This would have been like 2017.
This
right?
is 2016. I'm just doing the
2016,
math.
2017.
No, 2017 to 2018. That's a whole year.
Well,
something like that, yeah.
no, this
Before
Tyloo
the Indos.
was definitely
This is like
2018.
pre-Indo Tyloo I have.
I'm just gonna have
Because I have
2017.
Indo Tyloo, it's like Bente onwards, and then
Yeah.
I have pre-Indo Tyloo.
Yeah, but there's two pre-Indo Tylers. The one with Mo and DD, and then there's the one with no, sorry, this is post. Never mind. This is post.
Yeah,
so
that's
what
like
you
COVID
think
Tyloo.
this Tyloo? You think this
Hold on, let's
Tyloo is higher in
Yeah.
a top 10 of all time list than the current Renegades Greyhound FlyQuest?
No,
No fucking
not.
way.
They're
There's
not.
no way.
No,
There's
no,
no
they're
way.
not. Yeah,
They
fair
were
enough.
they were like, but the thing about this Tyloo is like, and that they actually don't make my list personally, is that they were
They don't make your list. That's crazy.
they were they were at best an upsetty spaghetti team for a little while. They were not.
right.
They were
That's
not.
like saying, okay, but that's like saying Foxy shouldn't make the list because they never
right.
made like
All right,
playoff.
all right, Jordan.
Fox had way more aura than this Tyloo. Way more.
Jordan.
No way they did.
I'm sending you the
See DD's
image
dreadlocks.
of DD's dreadlocks, and you need to add this. You need to add this in post. You need to add this in post. How is this not aura? How is that not aura, dude?
Oh my god.
And while we're talking about it, where is
this
Steel
good?
Helmet in this lineup? In this
amazing.
Where is Steel Helmet? That's what I need to know.
Steel helmet. Steel helmet.
Steel helmet.
Believe it or not, Steel helmet is not on my list.
Okay. What about old Mongols, IHC? I'm not talking about Taipei Mongols. I'm talking about Cabal
You're talking
Score
about-
Annihilation because that is a different core 3
Yep.
that did have a good little run as well.
I have them on my list. I have them unironically on my list. So
Where?
Really? Okay.
this is where. So I think I have Vox 6 and then that IHC 7. So if I'm going to put them in this list where we have Vox as number 6, for me they would go here somewhere. They would go 6, 7, maybe
This
8.
is results
somewhere
versus
around.
aura. What's more important? I think aura of Vox is more important than results personally.
I
So
agree.
so you would have Vox number 7 and IHC. Sorry, Vox number 6 and IHC number 7 in that case.
Probably for now, I guess.
That was my original thinking.
So we're not putting China Tyloo number 5? That's what I had, I
Let
think.
me check who I've got 5.
I had China.
China Tyloo number 5 is no.
I think
No.
Bro, that's
You're
such
missing-
an iconic team. What?
Okay,
they didn't do shit though. They were very
They
iconic.
didn't do shit, but they're iconic. They are like,
Yeah.
they are Asia CS. They
You're
are
trolling.
What the fuck are these cunts
He's
doing?
trolling.
Cunts-
Dude,
You're
Jordan,
trolling.
when I'm vetoing this, you know Pilski's trolling, right?
okay. We can put them in somewhere, but I don't think that they are better than this.
I think they scrape into the bottom of top 10 just for the aura and
it's
like
definitely
just the fun factor.
definitely
and
an
somebody.
argument. Yep.
Yeah, but come on, man.
Okay,
like,
so let me see then if I put this team in here at number 5, what you guys think in comparison to, bearing in mind we're talking about this 2017 Tyloo, we're talking about Voxy, and we're talking about the IHC prior to the Mongols.
Okay.
What about 2016 Mongols? Surely 2016 Mongols has fucking way more aura than 2017 Tyloo. IMO.
They do have a lot of aura,
okay.
but they what was it, like one tour, like
They
one
did
or
nothing.
two
They did
tournaments?
that. They did
One
fucking
event.
nothing.
They had
One
one event, bro. That's
One
like
event.
okay. Let me just fucking throw Skyred in fucking top 10 then. Like
Yeah,
it's
but
like
this
one
was the
event
team
where
that-
someone had aura.
It's the same thing as the Vox results, where it's like Vox didn't really have results necessarily that would be like, oh, you're as good as these
No,
teams
but
above you.
Mongols
But,
didn't have regional dominance though.
but they
Mongols-
fucking started Asia CS, bro. They kickstarted Asia CS.
Mongols lost. Okay, I'm going to argue for Mongols, right? The reason, the two big reasons. Number one, just pure the way they beat Renegades was Vox was kind of crazy, right? The
It was
way they
Renegades
pulled
at
it
the
off.
time.
At Renegades, and then of course they lost to the U.S. Embassy in Mongolia, which a lot of people lose to. So there's not much you can do about that, and that's why they kind of fell apart. But more importantly, the fact that they were the reason that Mongolia has this iteration of Mongols, and also all these new players coming out, is because they saw these guys win that shit. They appeared in newspapers and whatnot, and all the kids were like, "Hey, man, we can actually do something out of it, make something out of this." A lot of kids in Mongolia picked up counterstrike because of this particular iteration. And yes, it was just a one win. Yes, it was just IEM Taipei, but the impact can be felt literally 9 years later right now. So from that aspect, I still don't know if I put Vox above them or not, because Vox did much more. I mean, they achieved much more in the longer time frame, right? So
Yeah, that's a good argument.
it's
to be
tricky.
honest.
But I'd see definitely below them. I think just the Mongols, just vibes wise, just aura wise, whatever. I think they're above IHC.
So my argument here, Pilski, before you shoot down our fucking dreams of the Mongols in a top 5, is I personally think this was the team that first captured international interest from the Asia region. Okay, you can talk about all the like Tyloos and Cyberzens and all this bullshit before then. Even Vox. I think this was the first team where people were like, holy shit, Asian Counter-Strike exists. You remember Machine Gun ended up getting picked up into Splice pretty much as a result of this team. Now, he didn't do anything there, and that was a fucking train wreck, I will say. But in terms of international interest, aura, bringing attention to, that kind of thing, I think this Mongols team, for me, probably tops the pack, like, on the aura tier list. So, I have them number 5. Debate me.
I mean, I think they're like a one-hit wonder for me.
They
do
are.
have a lot of aura.
I'm not disagreeing that
They're
they
a
are
massive
one-hit wonder.
one-hit wonder, though, in like a very specific period. They didn't have any regional dominance compared to a lot of the other teams we're talking about. Like, you talk about them not even at a major, like just a IEM, like not.
It was a
I
minor,
say
by the
just
way.
an IEM.
It was
It was
a
a
minor.
minor. It was a minor. Okay.
Taipei was a minor.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
It was minor.
So-
It was officially the first minor.
That was why it was such a big deal, because it was the first time that this core, plus obviously what ended up being Renegades, actually ended up losing, like to a team in Asia, pretty much in a qualifier like that.
Yeah,
And
but
Tyloo
even
got
some of the
DQ'd.
O's teams have won more minors than that. Even some of the fucking China teams like Tyloo iterations have won more minors than that,
But they don't
the
have aura.
cultural impact, but the cultural impact that they
yeah.
had in the country of Mongolia, and this is, by the way, this has been ratified by people from Mongolia. I think Kay mentioned in the interview as well, where
Yes.
when they saw these guys win, this led to an influx of young blood
I know.
in the Mongolian scene, and that's why we have that. But look at Australia, man. Who the fuck do you have right now, dude?
I agree,
Just
but
pick
you guys
Dexter,
are so fucking biased because OG Tyloo is like iconic for all of the fucking China players as well. Like the Indo Tyloo is, but like legit, before that was a thing. That's 2018, bro. Like there was literally like multiple years where that China Tyloo was playing before that. That's like
Yeah, but
iconic.
they were
for-
not doing shit, dude. They didn't have that one event. They did not have their IEM Taipei. You know what I mean? It was just like, it's kind of like the tail end of the Himalayas. Well, they had their Mount Everest. It was just one Everest, one peak, but they had it.
All right.
But that being said, and this is where I pull the rug among all you guys, Vox Emerald should be on top.
Okay, like I'm like, as far as 5-6 is concerned, I can move them without really having too much of a sook, to be honest. So if you guys want to drop these teams down a little bit, I'm happy to do that.
Let's leave it for now. Let's leave it for now. I think Voxy should be above them as well. I actually agree.
I think
okay, so
this democracy wins.
Aura and cultural impact than the Mongols.
And the same
I don't know
argument.
what I expected this video to be, other than us just saying aura and cultural impact and talking about teams that won one event.
That's why it's greatest, not best.
Nobody think about this, right? You think about the argument we made for Mongols and what they did for the region and cultural impact. Box Seminar did that for us for years, right? For years, they were the team. They were the team. The other teams, the Immunity comes to mind, for example, wanted to crack against, and they were the ones who kind of forged a path ahead. And then later on, we had Winterfox. No one really talks about that anymore. And all the influx of Oz teams coming in and players coming out was directly because of what Vox did during this time frame. And it's a pretty... Dude, again, 2012, 2015, despite the fact they didn't have too many impressive deep runs and big events, just for how long they did it, I think is very, very impressive, honestly. And also, impact-wise for the region. So same argument I could say for Mongols, you can give it to Vox as well. And they did it for a longer time.
Okay, that's fine with me.
All right, number 7.
8 to 10. Shit, bro.
Are we sure on IHC?
Are we talking about Vici Gaming? We talking about Lin Vision?
Look, we can we're not sure on IHC. We're not sure on anything here beyond, but we still have, like we've said, we still got a lot of teams to talk about. So I think let's just fucking chuck some names out. And
this is where we get to discuss the amazing prospect that is, does the fucking COVID era mean anything when you're just playing your region online? Because if it does, then Vici Gaming is pretty good.
Well, that 2020 to 2022 Tyloo is also pretty good. Yeah. And then, dare I also say, this team is maybe also pretty good. So let's talk about this team. We can tie in Vici and Tyloo as well, because I think they're all similar conversations where, for me, this 2019 and maybe even slightly prior to that Greyhound roster, basically like the initial rise of Greyhound into being an international team. Dexter, Malta, Dick Stacey, Urquhart, Sicko, so this is probably slightly prior to the COVID period. So if you remember, Dex ended up getting picked up pretty much just as COVID ended up happening. But this was like, I think, the golden era of ANZCS, personally, right? 2019, we have that Renegades roster with Gratisfaction and Liaz, and then we have this Greyhound roster with Dexter, Dick Stacey, Malta, Urquhart, Sicko / Sterling, based on what period you want to talk about. They were a team that was inside the top 16 in the HLTV ranking. They had the IEM Sydney 2019 run, if you remember, where they very nearly made playoffs. They had the DreamHack Malmo 2019 run, where they beat Liquid, which at the time were considered maybe the best team in the world. They had just won a big event. And they were easily, as well, the strongest Asia-based team of their era. Now, the exception obviously being Renegades was a better team, but they were not Asia-based. So this Greyhound was, I think, again, in a particularly strong era of Asian Counter-Strike, quite a decent team in their own right. So that's why I would have them in at number 8 personally, but I'm willing to hear arguments for or against.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I kind of had like similar. The thing is, I had similar that to the like Foxy RNG. I was thinking of like current FlyQuest and Greyhound as like a similar team, but the rosters look very different at either ends of the thing.
Yeah. Like that's the hard part of doing this, is that like you can follow this Greyhound like trajectory into the current roster, but really like when you look at it, there's not even a single player really that's the same apart from Dexter, and that's like Urquhart's coaching fair, but like everybody else is not on that team anymore. It's a completely different team. Like to me, I actually think like the Inns, Vexite, Liaz era of Greyhound is just a different team. That's kind of how I separate it, especially when Vexite comes in. That's where the team kind of separates, because while it is the same team in that it's like the ship of Theseus. Have you ever heard of that? Where it's like, if I change one piece of this ship to make a repair one by one, at a certain point, there's no remaining pieces of the original ship, and yet it's still the same ship. That's this FlyQuest roster. They're still the same ship as what that Greyhound 2019 roster was, but they're not anymore. So that's why I have them as a separate team.
I'd put Vici above them.
You reckon?
Vici above them?
Yeah.
2018 to 2022 Vici, this one?
Yep. I mean, it's just that they were the second best team in Asia for pretty much, and at a time just taking on Tyloo in a lot of finals as well. They had a lot of runs. They had as much as results as Greyhound did. They did for a longer period of time. And look at the fucking names, man. We're talking about fucking Advent. We're talking about Zoking. Where's Zoking right now? He's fucking coaching the current Tyloo, and look at what that team's doing. We have Almond, the Immortal, the Never Cut, Kaze, the best offer ever from Southeast Asia. I mean, eventually, but he'll be back. And then we had Jamming and Freeman. Freeman, the best Hong Kong player ever. And then you have Jam Young, who is the modern day baby goat, right? Not Monacy. Monacy's the Flash, by the way. Anyway,
put some respect on Terry's name. That's what I'll say first.
Put some respect on Terry's name.
I don't know, bro. I don't think results-wise I'd have them above Greyhound, but in terms of memorability and being a beloved team for me, I think I do have them.
Knocking out Greyhound. North in IM Katowice, the play-in, that was epic, dude. Like, think about it. Has Greyhound killed an EU team ever? Nope.
Greyhound IM Sydney 2019 killed fucking SK Gaming. IM Sydney.
They were dying. They were dying anyway. It's fine.
I mean, they were fucking major winners, bro.
Yeah,
let me have a look. I'm pretty sure they beat SK and they very nearly beat FaZe.
Definitely a better team than Vici
They beat
Gaming.
FaZe as well. No, they beat FaZe. They beat they beat Heroic, which was a shit Heroic. To be fair, who was on this Heroic? Esatag, Flyberg, Mertz, Blame F's down, whatever. They beat. Okay, no, they lost to MIBR. They beat FaZe. They beat fucking Rain, Guardian, Olaf, Meister, Adren, Yanko. To be fair, they had Yanko.
Well, Yanko was playing, so there we go. Would have stand in, yeah.
And then they almost fucking beat Fnatic as well. Crims, JW, Exist, Twist, Brolin, which is not a bad team.
No, that was when Fnatic was completely falling off, dude. Yeah, they fell off hard. They fell off very, very quick.
They came second in that fucking event, cunt.
Yeah.
That Fnatic came second.
They still fell off overall. I'm just saying.
I think I do have Greyhound above Vici, to be honest, in terms of results. But
here's my thing. Actually, that makes the difference is that Vici pathetically fucking choked for the last probably like 2-3 years of their tenure. They were really good earlier on, like 2018, 2019 is where, remember that Katowice run that you're talking about? I feel like that's where this team really got a lot of work done. That was with Freeman actually before Jam Young, I think, came in. Or maybe just when Jam Young came in.
It was with Freeman.
So I think there's two arguments here, right? One is Vici, because you can see 2018 to 2022, they debatably have the longest running like core of results from any team really in Asia history. It took 4 years. It was quite a long time. However, I think that the Greyhound that we're talking about specifically was inarguably a better team than that Vici in the period that they existed. Purely because when you look at Asia RMRs, that Greyhound almost always outplaced that Vici.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm not even arguing that.
So it's like, which do you value more? Do you value the tenure, I guess, of this Vici roster?
I mean, if we're going to say that, we could put Greyhound above like 3 or 4 of the teams that they're behind, to be honest. So I don't know, bro.
I mean, Dick Stacey had his sticker, so that's impact right there. But then Zoking had his bus driver meme. So which one do you?
I think Dick Stacey
put on top.
Aura is definitely stronger than Zoking Aura.
Advent's Aura. Advent's Aura is...
But Advent hasn't even said a single English word. Still.
The thing about Advent's Aura is like, he's like one of those guys. He's like Michael Jackson, right? Michael Jackson was obviously very famous when he was alive.
Don't talk about the guy who picks up kids into his team who have got no experience.
Unrelated. I'm just talking about Aura. Michael Jackson's Aura hit peak when he died. Yes or no? Steve Irwin. Advent is Chinese Steve Irwin.
No, you're mad. You're so young. You're Jackson. Listen, man, I grew up when Jackson was at his peak, right? And when he died, everyone was like, holy shit, it's crazy. Dude, people used to fucking faint when he moved. I'm not even making this up. It'd just go like, woo-hoo, just dead. People just fucking dying.
Okay, what about Steve Irwin then? Advent is Chinese Steve Irwin, okay? As soon as Steve Irwin died, his aura went fucking ballistic, bro. Advent died. Advent got killed by Chinese counterstrike, and now I would say Advent aura now is way higher than Advent aura when he was a player.
He's a martyr, is what he's saying.
Yeah, he's Steve Irwin.
I think he definitely had aura when he was playing.
So is that plus or minus points? I don't know.
I don't know. I feel bad for Greyhound, so I want to move them up the list like a lot now that we're actually talking about them. But I'm happy to keep it as is in the interest of time.
Oh, we've got 30 minutes. Bleh doesn't have to go for another 30 minutes, he said. So,
Okay.
Man.
but we're getting to the end of the end anyway.
Who the
so-
fuck else is in here? We'll rearrange it in a
All
second.
right, all right. We'll see. We'll see.
Well,
All right.
well, who's my number 10? Let's say who's my number 10, and you guys can kill me or not kill me. My number
right.
10 is actually this Lim Vision.
Yeah.
Unironically, it's that Lim Vision because I think like you actually have to remember that this was a team that qualified for a couple of majors, actually did quite reasonably, and have as a while had a quite a long tenure.
They didn't do much.
They have qualified for more majors than half the fucking teams on this list.
Yeah, but dude, like, wait, let's see.
They don't have aura. They have no aura. I'll give you that. And aura, you seem like Bleh, you seem like an aura merchant at this stage.
I mean, G had aura, but the team was so
Not
weird
then.
that they actually held them back. They held them back. You know, I don't know, dude. Really these guys. They're in my top 15 for sure, but like,
let's start putting some teams outside of the list. Then,
I will give you
list.
guys my entire list of honorable mentions.
Okay.
And then
MVP PK should be there somewhere.
MVP PK
is in
absolutely is in there.
Yeah, I kind of had them my top. I mean, at bottom of the 10.
Oh, Rekka. Yep. I had
Rekka,
Rekka as the most carried team.
The most carried team. I looked at Rekka. I wanted to put Rekka in, but I was like, "There's no way." They literally have like one good event
on one legendary team though, and this is pre the minors. It's I put down NXL.
I knew you were going to say NXL. I knew.
The NXL were by far the best Asian team at that point in time, not counting obviously O's teams, right? This was I'm talking about
2015, 2016, right?
No, 2013, 14, 13 to early 15. Yeah, 2013 to 15. They had like. Some of these guys like Forged, FRGD, Forged. We had some of the guys that played on Rekka, basically. So we had Forged, we had Frost Misty, we had Rosu. I don't think Sis was there. I forgot the name of the guys. Fuck, I gotta look it up. But NXL will definitely, they were just farming everyone at the point.
What is this guy? Soy Fong? Does that ring a bell?
Soy Fong.
I'm looking at. I'm gonna just go to like a 2015 game and look at their roster from there. Or something.
No.
East Asian Championship 2014.
I'll tell you the lineup.
So Forged is this FRG Dib
D.
TJ.
Yeah, that's the guy. A fucking horrible name. But
what a name.
Chill guy. He was around for a long time, dude.
This one says Forged, EL, Sis, Golden Eyes, and Hazard. That's 2014.
Forged, Soifong, Rosu, Frost Misty, and Sis. That's the lineup.
Okay, who am I missing on my list here then?
Soifong, Rosu, Frost Misty, Sis.
Yeah, so basically, before they got the good players,
they were the first team who, if memory serves me right, they picked up Bentet. They tried Bentet for a bit.
In a
yeah, and for some reason they kicked him off of that. So I'm not sure what really went down. Maybe they thought he was cheating because it's so good. But I think they do have that legacy. I don't want that to be forgotten. 5 power, okay.
To be honest, that 5 power team was actually pretty legit. Like for a long while, they weren't legit enough to actually make it into a top 10. But I think they're an honorable mention for me. Like, because I was thinking, like, who else would you honorable mention? Like, would you honorable mention, unironically, Atox, Order?
Yeah, we got Order there, bro. I mean, that's most of the team that actually ended up becoming like the modern era, FlyQuest.
When was that? That would have been like 2018 to
2018, 19. Because they did actually qualify for some international events over like some of the other teams. Like they would beat them in the heads-up qualifiers. I don't think. Not that team.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to remember who was on it.
It's literally Ins, Hats, Liaz, Alistair.
Oh, that's an earlier version. That's a very early. Ins on Order is a very earlier version.
Or like whatever, some iteration of that.
Like
the Chiefs team that had like fucking Dexter and shit.
I'll put like 2018 Order. Chiefs with Dexter was like maybe like 2018 as well.
Whatever.
I don't think they did much.
Actually, that was like 2017. Yeah, but they're honorable mention for some results, I guess.
Well.
So who was the Asia one that we didn't?
We haven't got.
I said Atox, but like.
I don't think Atox did much.
Team Immunity has got to be way up the top of the honorable mentions.
So like
Immunity has to be at
2015, 2016 Immunity.
The one that played
James
2015, yeah.
That's the iconic Immunity right there, I think.
Yeah. Who else? I mean,
Which,
we got to mention some of the Thai teams, just because put them in.
Which lineup?
Yeah,
Which
that's the thing.
fucking lineup?
I did think about this. I actually did think about putting a Thai team somewhere, but I was like, the problem with Thailand was that there was too many of them, and they swapped around way too much for them to actually be like an error. Like the only one I think that you could really say was like a consistent team at any point was like that early signature roster, if you remember, like the Rolex, Genius,
yes,
fucking
Genius.
Reality kind of
Cigarettes.
Yeah, that was the only one that like lasted long enough, and again, that would have been like maybe like 2016. I'm just gonna put question marks here. Like that would have been the only one where I'm like, that was actually a team for like a long enough period of time.
I can see that.
I was thinking like Alpha Red, Beyond, Lucid Dream,
Yeah.
qualified for an international event.
Lucid Dream was good. That's a good shout.
Was it QQ? I think it was
I don't know.
QQ. Was the last one in that.
Getting into the
roster.
weeds at this point.
But see, this is like, yeah, you're getting too far down the list. Like it's like when I had honorable mentions, I was like teams that could legitimately almost be in the discussion for a top 10, and like I don't really think like even like any of these ones are in a top 10 list for me.
For me,
MVP PK could almost make top 10 for me.
I want to put MVP PK because it's a more memorable team than like Lin Vision's good results.
Yeah, Lin Vision didn't do much, man. They qualified for the major in Copenhagen. That's it. That's all they did. And if you look at okay, memorable games of Lin Vision, I'll tell you what, this particular lineup, right, was when they had that Starry had the 1v5 clutch against G2 on Vertigo. Remember that? Online last game. After that, they didn't win anything, right? They really haven't won much, but they were surprising because they were a new team for a lot of people coming, even for us as well, because we were looking at Tyloo and Vici. They just came out of nowhere. They had a lot of pretty, fun close matches, close wins, but they didn't really have anywhere close to the achievements that the teams above them had, right? They haven't really even been dominant in Asia, if you really ask me. They never had that thing. They never had the cultural impact either, if you really think about it. So I think the top 15 for sure. But I think, are we sure MVP PK?
I don't think so. But like the thing is that they're memorable for me because it's like they did something that other teams didn't do, which is like they had really old like 1.6s come back and start to play, and then they've merged with the like fresh talent in Korea in a region that's literally fucking dead. Like there actually wasn't another team, did not exist. They had to revive a whole different era of players,
and they went top 3, and they went top 2, top 4 in Asia very quickly. As soon as
you agree but do you agree that the Zion Zeta era of this roster is the one we're talking about?
But like, I don't think that was even that long of a period. But
it
like,
wasn't. It was
my
only like a year, or it was like 12 months or 18 months, right towards the end of. Because I remember specifically this team. Maybe I'm fuzzy on Solo Glow Zeph, but definitely Zion and Zeta were in that 2019 Extremesland team that went to Extremesland 2019. That, to be fair, this team really fell off hard towards the end of Global Offensive. That's towards the end of their tenure, I should say, in Global Offensive. Which is the one thing that detracted from them, in my opinion, was that if you look at their 2019 results, they were really fucking piss low. But for a while, they were definitely up there. And I think at one point, I would almost be able to make an argument that even if it was maybe only for a few months, that they were the best team in Asia. But it was Zeta and Zion in that roster at the end, I remember, because I was sitting in a taxi with Zeta, and we were going to the Extremesland venue and talking. We were
together in that.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah,
we were talking to him about like Korean Counter-Strike and stuff like that. And then very soon after that, obviously COVID happened, and then this team went to play in Valorant, basically, in any various way, shape, or form. How many of these guys have a career in Valorant? Solo, Zeph, Zeta?
So, like, that team didn't actually really go to Valorant, to be honest. It was
not
like
the team, but like the players, I mean.
No, none of the players, like, okay, so what happened is Solo and Glow did go to Valorant.
Yeah.
And Zeta did go to Valorant, but actually the team that became like the most dominant team, so you got to put Stax in there as well, I think. Stax was
he wasn't on this team, though.
Was he not?
Was he? I don't think.
Well, I think it was there earlier.
Yeah.
See, this is where it gets fuzzy. There was like a lot of iterations of this team.
The team that actually became super dominant in Valorant was actually the players that they picked up at the end, like King and fucking
King,
random,
YB
like,
or whatever.
Stars and shit. RB, yeah. That was the and Stax. That was the team that became super dominant.
Oh no, this
Zeta
Stax
wasn't
was
on that team.
So Stax was in 2019. He was playing in Gosu in 2018.
There's no way this team goes in the list, by the way. They didn't even ever win, like go to a major or win a Asia qualifier or
That's
anything.
the thing. I think the late 2019 to 2020 MVP was dog shit compared to the earlier, like 2018.
I agree.
So that for me is where
This
like
team doesn't make the top 10, but I like
this team specifically.
They are very memorable. Yeah, they don't make the top 10. There's no way.
All right.
Envision's way better than these.
All right, I'm gonna give the smackdown here. Top 10. The top 10, and it has to be this team.
Okay.
I'm gonna fucking riot. It is Captain Mo. It is DD. It is somebody. It is Attacker, and it is fucking Summer, aka Fancy One.
I
can't think of any other team.
I think they had more aura and cultural relevance than Linvision for sure.
See, you were really
Anyone
hard on
else?
this team. You were really hard for this team earlier on, Pilski. So I feel like
they're like in my top 5, bro, for like memorable. Like this
they're in
is
your
the
top five.
memorable Asia CS team. Like
Look,
this is
okay.
like where the Asia CS moniker comes from.
Imagine, like, for the average outside viewer, right? Like, just the average EU poor viewers, or any idiot viewers who don't know anything about international counterstrike, pre-current Mongols or pre-current IHC, right? If you ask them, all right, think about the Asian teams, think about the memorable Asian teams. Oh, Tyloo, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're going to be like, oh, Benton and Excurate. And they're like, yeah, that's a team. I'm like, name any other Asian team, not us, Asian team. You're going to be like, oh yeah, Tyloo, Summer, somebody, Attacker, those guys.
Yeah.
They were, people remember them. People remember them for appearances and all these events. Sure, they didn't have any deep runs, but they just had something about them, man. So you cannot, in good faith, have a top 10 off APAC without this lineup.
So here's what I'm going to say. Vici needs to go to number 10 for sure. Tyloo or Greyhound. Greyhound needs to go up, and I think Tyloo needs to go to number 9. I think Greyhound needs to go to number 8, Vici number 10, Tyloo number 9.
So wait, Vici's going to 10.
Yeah, I think that's correct. That's correct.
Hang on.
I think Greyhound's going to go, yeah.
This is going to screw my formatting, so I just need to...
Wait, Greyhound and 8?
Either Tyloo or Greyhound, I don't care. I actually don't care anymore.
Vici 10 makes... I'm okay with that. I convinced myself.
At 8 because I think they're just so iconic.
Yeah.
They're a more iconic team.
I agree.
We've given a lot of points for aura and iconicness. Like you can't really debate the top 4 results and the rankings that those top 4 teams have.
Are you going to say that Greyhound, this lineup, did, the run they had results-wise as well, and the run that Tyloo had and all the appearances they had in that time with this lineup, Tyloo still had more of an aura and a buzz around them. I would put Tyloo above Greyhound.
If I was going to go aura, bro, I would fucking not even...
No, but even the results, Greyhound, apart from a few wins here and there, sure, some impressive stuff, a few best of 1 wins, maybe a couple of best of 3 wins over some top-tier opposition. They didn't necessarily have as much deep runs in any of the events they went to outside.
In Asia, though.
So was Tyloo. So was Tyloo, man. So was Tyloo, dude. And remember that in the great Tyloo Renegades rivalry back then, right? And this is Renegades above Greyhound, right? I'd put Tyloo over them because Tyloo were beating Greyhound back then. Of course, that was like with the Benton era, but even pre that, they were very competitive against
that Greyhound was not even good Greyhound. Like the early era Greyhound was not even the best team in ANZ.
That's like Renegades Tyloo rivalry at that point.
Yeah, that was Renegades Tyloo. Like 100%, that is a different Greyhound than what we're talking about. 2017 Greyhound is not 2019 Greyhound. 2017 Greyhound is like fucking Peasy Kid and shit like that. And fucking Moe. Do you remember Moe?
Moe
CQ. Like it's just
CQ,
not the same team. So
See, this is why I had
that Greyhound was not even as good as like this Order in Chiefs.
I would still put Tyloo above that, man. Like
that's fine.
Just
so you want to put
memorability wise. Yeah, I put 8 at 8.
Put them up. Okay. This is why, because I think of that Voxy era and I think of Tyloo as well. Like after that being like the next iconic Asian team. And I don't really think of Mongols as that iconic Asian team. I think of Tyloo as being more iconic than Mongols for me. Is that cap? Like, especially before this iteration of Mongols started popping off, and this is why everyone thinks like that Taipei result is like cracked or something. I think Tyloo is a more iconic Asia team, and I know that like, the new era Mongolian people will be like, "No, bro, like that's not true." But if you deleted the like IHC and Mongols, the new one, right, with blitzes like come up after checkmate.
Yeah.
I would think of Tyloo. I would have been like, wow, Mongols had that one event. That was crazy. But I think Tyloo is like iconic as fuck.
To me, that 2016 Mongols has so much fucking aura, bro. And I don't know why, but they do. Like, they're just in my head rent free.
Because I've seen Captain Mo roll out in a wheelchair to play a fucking event, right? Like, I've seen this live, and he gave me a cigarette. He's like, hey, man, have a cigarette. I'm like, hey, Captain Mo, how are you feeling? I'm great. Here's a smoke.
You got to put dreadlocks next to fucking DD.
He gives a cigarette, and I'm like, oh, what is this cigarette? And it's vodka flavored. I'm like, what the fuck is this, right? The guy, it's like an unreal
DD
team.
The Dreads. I don't think Dreads came until like literally recently.
Okay, I'd put them over IHC.
You put Tyloo over IHC? I can take that for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, bro.
This got hard, man. It's got really hard.
You're getting nitpicky in this part, but like that's kind of what this is.
I think it's like what Asia team matters the most to you, and it's like I actually think this is starting to get more accurate for me.
I feel like we fucked up by combining, Asia and OS. I think there's a lot of teams. I think, if in Asia we could have actually gone deep into the
we would have got into MVP. We would have got into Dreamscape.
I think it would have been fun.
You don't know who half the fucking OS teams are. If we started like being like, oh, remember this like Oceanic Nationals that they played at in 2018.
If we did a top 10 OS. If we did a top 10 OS, we'd be like, yeah, remember that like Breakaway roster? They're like a honorable mention players. Like, fuck, what? Breakaway? Never heard of these guys before.
I remember Corvidae. I remember Corvidae. That was a cool lineup. I remember Tated Minds and their fucking cool logo.
I played for a Corvidae team. Not that one.
Do you remember Pilski Avant?
But I played on a Corvidae team.
Avant Pilly? My goat.
Oh, shit, bro.
All right. I think, okay. I still feel uncomfortable. I'll tell you. Really? I still feel a little uncomfortable about no, do I? Oh, no, it's fine. I still have this thing about 5 and 4, but I can't fuck with, the Renegades, Hounds, the results, honestly, and what they had. I can't fuck with that. But I think I'm pretty happy with this.
Yeah. I honestly think even this could go like back to like 2022. I think I might have put it as 2023 onwards just because it was easier in terms of not having to like swap like Dexter for Sicko and fucking Vexite for... Was it Vexite for Sicko and Dexter for... I think it might have been Vexite for Hats and Dexter for Sicko. I can't... This is the thing. It's one of those Ship of Theseus things again.
No, Dexter played with Sicko.
So it must have been Vexite for Hats then, and...
I'm sure Dexter played with Sicko and Greyhound, but I don't know.
Vexite for Dick Stacy, right? Or Malta?
No, that was
way No, sorry. That's different. My bad.
Go look at the Wikipedia. But Vexite came in, I'm pretty sure... it must have been for Hats, I think. Or Sicko. Right.
I think it was Sicko. No. Vexite was there with Sicko.
It was for Hats, I'm pretty sure. Or Malta. It has to be Hats or Malta.
It wasn't Malta, surely not. Was it Malta? Maybe it was Malta. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, like this, to me, the modern day Renner Flyhounds has their like consistent level at the top of ANZ CS, the top of Asia CS, even just behind Mongols, frankly, but top of Asian CS for a very long period, longer than any of the other teams that we've really discussed. Like, I think the level of consistency that we see from this team is equal to the level of consistency that we see from this team, and that beats literally every other team in this list except for this Vici. But that Vici played during the COVID era, and they also were not at as high of a consistent level as certainly not the Mongols and even this current Renegades.
They also had a curse inflicted upon them of second places to a Tyloo team that was not even vaguely as good as them, I don't think. I still believe that. I still don't think that Tyloo... I constantly remember those games, and I remember that Tyloo
15 losses in a row it was, or 14, I think.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's ridiculous.
They lost like 9 events to them in a row or something, second place. Yeah. When Vici was so much better against the rest of the field than Tyloo was.
Let me see if I can find it and put it on the screen here. Vici CSGO. Because it's a stunning graphic. I don't know if it's going to fit in the screen here. Let me see how this looks when I pull it across.
That was crazy.
It's actually 2020. Here it is. This doesn't quite... Hang on, I need to shrink this. Oh, that's the wrong one. This is the trouble.
Don't try to get too fancy and break everything.
I'm gonna. See that? literally lost. This it's hard to show because of the size of this thing. There we go. Second, third, second, and it's all to Tyloo. Tyloo 2-3-2, Tyloo 3-0, Tyloo 2-3, Tyloo 1-3, Tyloo 1-3, Tyloo, and then eventually they won against Tyloo. And you got to remember, in all of these seconds as well, they literally lost to Tyloo twice in the event as well. They lost twice in every single one of those events because they lost in the upper bracket final and then they lost in the grand final.
And the best thing about it was Tyloo would be like playing the opening match against some Thai team and like struggle. They would be like fucking barely beating some of the other teams in the event. And then, like, they would fucking beat them in the grand final every time. They had some kind of weird matchup.
Sorry,
any other teams that we want to throw in honorable mentions before we wrap, though? There's a couple of, like...
for just pure impact around the world, I guess you could throw in Optic India.
Optic India, for sure, has got to go in there. That is some cultural impact. And we should name some other, like, regions that haven't gotten any...
Who was that? That was
that YB? Foreskin? Marzel, YB, Forsaken. Fuck, I forgot.
Lightning Fast, was he in that team?
No, he wasn't there. Haivan, Haivwan.
Rings a bell.
And I can't remember the fifth for
this is the irony, is that Forsaken is the most memorable. Antidote.
Antidote.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah, right.
2018.
Okay. What about who else? What about like Risky or some shit, like some of these Middle Eastern teams? Because we haven't even mentioned.
There might have been like a what was it? Not NASA or something. Yeah.
NASA, Risky.
It's really nice.
They were alright. There was like one or two like Asian minors where they made top 4 or something, if I remember correctly.
NASA Esports. Yeah. Let's have a look quickly. They did okay in like some Extremes Land events as well, if I remember.
Oh, can we put Absolute in there just from being a Japanese team?
Yeah.
Scars Absolute?
Scars, yeah.
The thing with Nasser is...
There was a time
so many
Valorant where I was like, maybe they could start getting good because they actually played some decent Counter-Strike and play with good structure, bro.
And they weren't...
Retla? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
Retla was there.
Pro,
Bars.
Poem?
Poem, yeah.
Poem.
Something like that.
Pro was a... Crow. Was it CRO or KRO?
Was it Bars? Was it Bras or Bars or Brace?
Bars. It was definitely Bars.
Yeah, it was Bars. Yeah,
I think that's the correct team.
For Nasser, you have like you have these guys: Havoc, best Indian player ever, with a K, with a C. Okay, yeah,
it's a K. I'm pretty sure.
Breaker, Nami.
Yeah,
Caribob. Was it Caribob?
Caribob was there.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Caribob, I remember.
What was it, 5th? They did have a few lineup changes in between, but I think this is the lineup I remember the most.
Breaker, Nami,
Kit Kat. That's one.
Kit Kat was a big one.
That's the lineup I remember.
If we want to chuck in most carried teams of all time, MVP Karnal has got to go there.
Oh, that's Kaze's Malaysian squad.
Yeah, but
that goes right up there with most carried teams of all time. If we ever made a list of that, Rekka and fucking MVP Karnal would be there for sure.
Mouse Sports, Nick Sports.
Yeah, for sure.
Arnold team. I remember
Archop, Ayman,
Archop, Ayman, Xavier, XEVR, Zeva.
Was Davai on this roster at one point?
And Izzat.
No, Davai was on Crossfire. He was never on this team. He was way later.
IZZIATR, Izzat R.
IZZATR. That?
R, yeah, Izzat.
I don't even fucking
like
remember that guy.
Yeah. I remember him.
Something like that, yeah.
Eamon, Archop, Xaver, Kaze. That's a lineup. That's our lineup. I think that's pretty much it.
No, it was PZ Kid. It was fucking PZ Kid.
No, PZ Kid was way later.
PZ Kid was way later. I don't even think Xaver is right. I think like Ayman, Archop,
Kaze. Was it Clickside? It was Clickside, right?
Bro, this lineup was together for a year and a half. Dude. What are you talking about? It was Kaze, Xaver, Archop, Eamon, and Izzat R. The lineup, this particular lineup was the beginning of 2016 till the end of 2016.
Yeah, when they became
PZ Kid joined.
Yeah,
and Izzat was definitely a member of that.
I just remember Kaze from MVP, not MVP. What was it?
I love how Boot Dreamscape needs like almost 2 whole rows
Yeah, that was the fun. Literally, they.
So many players.
And that's actually genuinely what that team was. Like they were a
That
rotating
lineup-
core.
Dude, that lineup was what could have been. Because look at what a lot of them have achieved over time, right? Like
I mean,
Alex
we can
being the
put
coach of
Little
all that.
Forsaken in here as well at one point because he became part of that team and when they became Paper Race too.
Yeah, I know.
That's like after
Just to fill out,
COVID at that point.
just to fill out, yeah, but just to fill out the two.
Yeah.
I think that's that. That's pretty happy with this.
Yeah, me too.
Have I forgotten anyone else? No, right? I can't think of
I
any
mean,
other team.
I remember. So I will say as well, one player who we haven't mentioned and one era that we haven't mentioned as much is, for me, an iconic Asia team, which is defined by one player, is that old Chinese team CyberZen with Savage
Yes.
warping on it. That was actually a legit fight. I don't even
Was that
know.
like Savage,
TB,
Bottle,
Savage,
Bottle, TB. Advent was playing in that team at one point, but not all the time. They had some other fucking players, but
Dude, CyberZen had
Savage was
Zoking.
like the most aura AWP in Asia that never did actually turned into
No.
anything.
CyberZen
HZ.
had HZ was there. Dude,
HZ.
CyberZen had Zoking, and they had a big
Yeah.
rivalry with Tyloo, right?
Yeah,
Before
the
Vici. Before Vici.
modern era Vici Gaming. It was like, and even like some of those players, like TB and Advent and Zoking, were successful or like had qualified for an international event before that Mo DD team. I think weren't they the first like Asia team qualified?
I don't think they qualified. I think qualified for Star Ladder
Chinese?
events. For Star Ladder
Yeah.
events, yes. Because I remember this one LAN. I need to find this. There's one LAN they played the Star Ladder qualifiers. Well, for the rest of the world, they had online. And China, they had a LAN thing. It was the best of 5. And it's a very famous scene where Zoking does the brokey, where they win the match, and he just like gets up and just flips off Tyloo, which is so legendary from Zoking. There was a lot of bad blood between CyberZen and that era of Tyloo. Because it was Savage and Captain Mo. These are old school players. By the way, for a lot of people, newer viewers, Savage is the Chinese Counter-Strike player guy even from 1.6, right? So if you're talking about legacy, he had that and he carried on to it. So yes, CyberZen absolutely. I'd actually put them, quite a way up in the honorable mentions, honestly. Yeah. Just from vibes.
That's a team that's unfortunately just been lost to time. But that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of these teams are like very iconic to me because it's like before Asia CS really kicked off as much and like what got as many opportunities. It's like I think of like CyberZen, old Tyloo, MVP Karnal, Rekka NXL, like a lot of these teams before Mongolia was even a fucking sperm in Mongolia, who, Genghis Khan's balls or whatever the fuck it is.
By the way, this is kind of crazy. Like I don't know why I don't remember this. They did kind of smash Chiefs and Risky at IM Taipei. CyberZen was at IM Taipei. Everyone kind of forgets it because Tyloo got DQ'd because QZ had a VAC ban account. Mongols beat Renegades, and sure they got bummed out by Renegades in the semifinals. But top 4 Taipei, they were relevant. They were absolutely a team that was making waves, at least in the region back then. So yeah, shout out Savage, man.
Yeah, Savage was like actually an Asian AWP that like I was like, this guy could actually carry a game against the EU opposition. Yep. And you got to put Sky Red with fucking Crazy Guy for like the most one-hit wonder of all time.
Crazy Guy.
Name another player
on
the team.
The first Asian player to ever have an HLTV frag movie named after him, The Beast from the East.
Yeah, so I interviewed him the other day for a Valorant thing, and I was like,
he's doing good, right? Valorant,
The Beast from the East. I think he's about to actually get picked up into the Tier 1 league for Asia. Nowadays, he is, and for all of Valorant, I think, or most of Valorant.
Name. Look at that, Dark Lord with an
Dark Lord. Dark Lord. He has not been an AWPer or like a star player. He's been like a support player in IPL.
It's not CLB, by the way. I think CLB got replaced by Crazy Guy. CLB got replaced by Crazy Guy. So I think it's Toucan, Johnny P. Toucan, Johnny P, Zach, Crazy Guy, Dark Lord.
What event was that they did that?
Oh, which one? I think it was a DreamHack event, right?
I was curious what event it was.
DreamHack Stockholm 2015?
Yes. No, wait. Was it Cluj-Napoca? Cluj-Napoca, right? They qualified
Stockholm, they went 0-2.
They qualified for the DreamHack Open Cluj-Napoca qualifier. Yeah.
Oh, really? They
Yeah,
did, I
yeah.
remember like they didn't win any games. That's not what
No.
it was ever about. Crazy Guy was just fucking
He
phenomenal.
just popped off. He just popped
Yeah.
off. That's it.
They got shit stomped, I'm pretty sure. Like every
They
game.
won a map against Vexed, which is a
Yeah,
Polish team,
I don't think
which had
that was-
Rallen in it.
It was Rallen and stuff.
That's not a good
I will say
Not it?
this, and this has been lost to time, but back in the glory days of 2013, 2014 online Asian Counter-Strike, Johnny P, this is like early days, right? And in Southeast Asia in particular, Johnny P was pretty fucking good. I think it was really, really solid, at least online. But I think it's when they came on land, that's when he kind of failed to deliver. He really kind of disappeared off the scene. But he was a guy where I really feel he could have done something if the rest of the region had kind of some players around him. I think that's that.
That's that. That's the list. Everyone's happy?
I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy.
Can't argue with it. I can't. Yeah, I wouldn't move anyone else from this position.
Well,
people are gonna be so mad.
I can't believe I had to
Mongols at the
talk
bottom.
you guys so hard into fucking OG Tyloo. Like, I should not have had to do that.
No, dude, no. It just didn't enter my head. But the moment we started like talking about it, I'm like, yeah, more up. I'm in. I was in. I was all.
No, I think it's one of those things where like they just don't stick in my head that much, but I could definitely come around to it.
That's because you just hate Tyloo.
One time.
Okay, but actually quickly,
okay,
while we have the time here, which we don't have much of, I did a community poll of sort of thing, and I said, give us your top 10, whatever. Obviously, some of these are just fucking memes. Some guy literally said something like Mongols, IHC, I don't know any other teams, basically. But one thing that I wanted to point out here was unequivocally everyone said current day Mongols as number 1. Number 2, almost everybody says either Tyloo or Renegades, and number 3, most people are saying Tyloo or Renegades. So the top 3, as we said, were pretty comfortably what we said they were, but it gets really, really messy as you go deeper in here. Like, you got some 2019 Tiger who's on our honorable mentions. There was some...
Bro, the fact they have like Tiger D12, and these are the same people who are yelling at me when I'm like, Mongols haven't won a single SCQ. Like, shut the
Bleed
fuck up,
is in
bro.
here. Someone's put Bleed in. Like
actually, shut the fuck up, dude. Like
alter ego. Come on, guys.
That's Kassad from his alt account, 100%.
Yeah, GR, current GR. Like, hello, what are we talking about here? So there are a few. Yeah, there's a few trolls. I don't even think GR has.
I don't think they're
right
trolling.
Now.
Dude, they're not even trolling. That's the thing. A lot of people that just like, we're a Mongols fan, we're this fan, and they just completely disrespect the history of the region. And I feel like, obviously, that's why we sometimes get a few, a little bit of hate and brickbats our way. But I feel like we can't forget these teams, right? We cannot forget, the brick they wear in the wall that is APAC Counter-Strike, because they've all been a struggling region. And I feel like every single team and player here have played their part in what we have today in one way or the other. And I think that's important to remember. And I think that's why I always always go back to, back in 2007, Jordan, when I was a wee young lad, this team was great. It matters. And that's all I have to say about that.
Yep. Let's wrap it up there. That was a lot longer than I thought it was going to take. I thought it would take maybe like 40, 45 minutes. This has been almost an hour and a half, which means when we end up doing the top 20 Asia players of all time, we're going to have to block out like a good 2 hours, I think, because we're going to have a lot to say about that. So that'll be something. But yeah, we'll be back. We've got another 5 videos here for you guys on the SkinClub community portal coming up, so keep an eye out for those, 1 a month, and hope you enjoyed it. Otherwise, shout outs to SkinClub. Obviously, check us out on Geographically Challenged. You can see us there. Look us up on YouTube. If you like this content, make sure you have a check in on that, and we'll see you there. Otherwise, peace out and look forward to the next one.